This super full moon in Aries on October 17th, 2024 is going to be the most intense lunar alignment this year. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how this super full moon might affect us personally, as well as how it might also affect our experience around the United States presidential election coming up on November 5th, because this is the last full moon before that big decision for this country. So the moon is in Aries at 24 degrees and it is conjunct Chiron at 21 degrees. So these two are almost right in alignment, right on top of one another. Chiron is the wounded healer. And then you have Aries, which is associated with the planet Mars. And Mars is associated with, in its bright side, it's associated with things like passion, vitality, courage, gusto. It can really help us face fears. It's a fiery planet. Aries is associated with like fiery kind of energy. But in its not so great side, in its shadow aspect, Mars is associated with combat, aggression, and war. So there's a couple of things that are intensifying this already intense energy of Aries. One, it's a super full moon, and that means that the moon is closer to the Earth than what is typical. But this particular super full moon is the closest it's going to be this entire year. In addition to that, this moon is part of a grand cross, and not just any grand cross. All four signs that are associated with this grand cross are cardinal, which also amplifies the energy around this moon and the cross in general. So the grand cross is the big red triangle in the astrology chart, and the cardinal grand cross that we are experiencing in this particular full moon is between the moon that's in Aries, and I guess we could also associate Chiron in that because of the fact that they're conjunct, but it is squaring Pluto, that is at 29 degrees in Capricorn, Sun, that's at 24 degrees in Capricorn, and we have Mars, that's at 22 degrees in Cancer. So not only do we have the moon, which is being associated with a lot of this intense Martian Aries energy, but Mars itself is part of the cardinal grand cross that the moon is also participating in. And Mars isn't exactly happy in the sign of Cancer. That's its opposite. And so it's like, the way that I would describe it is like steam. So you have Cancer, which is like deep watery energy, and you have the fire energy of Mars, and Mars is associated with the sacred masculine. Cancer is associated with motherhood and femininity. So it's almost like you have mom and dad in a room that are like having a very heated discussion. It's steam, it's pressure. So Mars is also in opposition with Pluto within this Grand Cross, and that opposition is one of the things that may very much affect the election that's coming up on November 5th. So that opposition between Mars and Pluto is going to be exact on November 3rd and 4th, the day before the election. Pluto is associated with death and rebirth. Mars, we already talked about how it can be very combative, aggressive, and because of the extensive polarization around this particular election and how divided our country as a people we are right now, I think it's more likely that actually those shadowy aspects of aggression and combat and fighting might come up. Now, in this video, I'm not going to talk about who I think is going to win, because I think that that will only feed into the polarization that's already taking place. But I am going to talk about what I think is going to be very particularly different about how we experience this election, and perhaps even the results. But I'll get to that in a second. So, then Pluto finally is going to transit on November 19th into Aquarius. And so Pluto is in the very last hurrah of its Capricorn energy. And because the slow moving planets have such a big and profound impact on us collectively, there is like this sense of urgency that's around this energy of this moon and the energy of Pluto. And, you know, Pluto is playing such a key role in all of this energy. And so it's almost like there's this feeling of we know that something is ending, and all the things that need to get tied up quickly so that we can move on, because we're already sensing and there's already themes that are showing up that collectively we're really yearning to move into that Aquarian energy. And the Aquarian energy is more about social justice, humanitarian kind of energy. It's about technology, and it's also about change. It's about revolution. Aquarius is associated with Uranus. Uranus is the planet of change and revolution. And so we can almost feel it in our bones, I think, that there is dramatic shift happening. And this isn't going to necessarily just be collective, right? Because we're part of that. It's also going to show up in our personal lives as well. So what I think that is very interesting, and something that I haven't actually been hearing a lot of astrologers talk about, is the fact that I'm seeing this very much activating the north and south node axis that we've been playing with since July of 2023. And this intensity around this north and south node axis between the north node of Aries, which is inviting us to release any sense of victimhood, to reclaim our sovereignty, and the south node that's saying, with it being in Libra, is that it's time to let go of any kind of martyrdom or any kind of codependency or relating to the group, whether or not it's our family, our neighborhood, our country, whatever it might be. It's time to renegotiate that relationship so that it's actually supporting us as a sovereign individual, instead of the sovereign individual having to make a personal sacrifice on their health and their well-being and what is really supportive for them in order to support whatever the agenda or the group consensus is. So it's time to let go of the group think, and it's time to move on into critical analysis and individualized sovereignty, which is very interesting when we think about the fact that Pluto is moving into Aquarius. If the shadow side of Aquarius can be the groupthink mentality. So you get into like mass hysteria, mass psychosis, things of that nature with Aquarian shadow side. But when you have, I think that's one of the gifts of this north and south node axis that we've been experiencing for over the last, since July of 2023, so that would be the last 18 months, is we needed that to prepare us for this big shift. Because if we haven't learned how to protect and refine and get really clear on who we are as individuals and what it is that we need, and speak up for that, and know what our non-negotiables are, and know what parts and what values and what aspects of our life are more immutable or flexible, until we get clear on that, it would be very detrimental for us to potentially, for Pluto to go into Aquarius if we're not clear on all of those things. So even though this north and south node axis has been very trying, and it's been pressurized ever since the lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 17th. So a month ago on September 17th, we had this lunar eclipse in Pisces. And that ever since then, the energy of the me versus we has been growing in pressurization. It's almost like a gunpowder keg, where you like have those old timey like kegs that are full of gunpowder, and it's like all it needs is just a little spark, And it's like people are coming to a point where like enough's enough. And that's why I think this particular election is going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of conflict around it. I don't think that it could be that we have results that people don't trust, and so there might be a lot of conflict around like who actually won. Perhaps there could even be a delay on the actual election itself. Or then after the election, there could also be some things that come up that might change our view on how either the results or who should be running. And the reason why I say that is because there's this strong opposition between Venus at 29 degrees in Scorpio and Uranus that's at 26 degrees in Taurus. And so I think that it is possible that we might get news around this time in the next 3 weeks on backdoor dealings, especially because it's Taurus. So Scorpio is about what's hidden, and then you have Taurus, which is about finances and wealth. It wouldn't surprise me if there is some sort of, big thing that comes up over like either some sort of fraud or scam or backdoor dealings, or something happens in the financial sector, or there's some sort of legal dispute that comes up around this time. And because of how big the energy is, I'm kind of wondering if that might in some way be connected to the folks that are running for election at this time. So personally, this opposition could bring about a big change in how we manage our finances as well as how we make our money. So anyone who is thinking about changing their career, or there could be also some negotiations, or this might be the time where like you have like a big something that comes up where like you have to where legal documents are a part of it. So selling or buying a house, marriage, divorce, big changes of some sort. Like if you're married, might be not being married anymore. Something where there is some sort of legal aspect to the managing or renegotiating of our financial assets or how we make our money. I think this also could come up as for some folks, you might be renegotiating your pay or your position at your job, or you might decide that you want to do something completely different altogether, and then that changes your course for 2025. So that is how that might show up in our own personal lives. So the thing that I also want to talk about with like Pluto and some of this intensity that's coming up, it can be very easy to get sucked into the chaos. And it can be very easy to look at the chaos and to look at, especially if you're in astrology, it'd be very easy to kind of blame poor Pluto and just be like, you know what, why did you create all of this chaos? Pluto didn't create the problem. The problems that it's bringing up to the surface are systemic issues that it's like a poison that needs to be siphoned out in order for us to move ahead in a way that's sustainable, in a way that has integrity, in a way that is honest. It can be sometimes very tempting to just kind of like cover things up, but these are systemic issues that are needing to come up. Like it's no coincidence that around the same time we're seeing all of the the backdoor, like not just financial dealings, but like just straight up evil that's going on in Hollywood and with like the Epsteins and the Weinsteins and the Diddies and all of this stuff that's happening. That's part of the shadow coming up to the surface, coming up to the light, so that it can be healed, so that it can be dealt with, and so justice can be done. So the thing also that might really help us too with all of this very intense energy, because I don't think that Pluto is just bringing up to the surface things that are in our collective. there's also things that are coming up to the surface for us individually. So that might include like the reality and the truth of certain relationships. Are they actually supportive, or is there things that are going on that are more two-faced? Is trust and respect have they actually been earned? Are we being placated, or are we placating others? Like, those are all things that could come up to the surface. And what's also coming to my mind just like spontaneously is it may be that somebody that's watching this video, you might have a boss or a business partner where there might be something that's nefarious that might come up to the surface too, and during this next 3 weeks. The thing that can really help us with this, though, is Jupiter, that's at 21 degrees in Gemini, trines the Sun, that's at 24 degrees in Libra. And keep in mind that that same Sun in Libra is also part of this Grand Cross. So it's almost like, it's like Jupiter is like associated with luck and good fortune. It's like he's associated with like the energy of almost like a Santa Claus. And he's retrograde right now, which it isn't as intense as like a Mercury retrograde, but like Jupiter in retrograde allows us to kind of reassess like what we want, our values, what energy do we want Jupiter to expand? And I do feel that with the energy being in retrograde, it's actually helpful with this Grand Cross, because Jupiter usually expands anything that it touches. But with its retrograde kind of energy, it's like softening that kind of what would be an amplification to energy that's already highly pressurized and highly amplified. So it's like Jupiter is going into the underworld, and he's like almost like, I feel like he's like sitting there with Pluto and having like just like a good chat on like, hey, so what are we preparing for? Like, I mean, you're coming in and everything's being cleared out, so what are we planning for? And that might be something that you could ask yourself, like, what is it that you would prefer to come next? Because here's the thing, I'm looking at this energy and I'm like, you know what? There's going to be tension and intensity. And regardless if your circumstances in life are going very well, or if you're facing a lot of challenges right now, like chances are we're all going to feel it, even if on a personal level, like we're not experiencing chaos. We're going to feel the chaos of the collective. So if we are going to be feeling this intensity, we might as well be aligning with it in a way that is going to be conducive and helpful for both us personally, individually, as well as, to be part of the solution for the collective. If we allow ourselves to get sucked into the chaos and allow ourselves to get super anxious or afraid or angry, if we allow ourselves to be part of all of that, then we're only adding to that energy. The way that we can help neutralize that is to try to be as neutral as possible, almost taking like that bird's eye view, so to speak, or being in the eye of the storm as we see the intensification of things all around us. One thing that I also see here with this astrology is that it's possible that we might continue to see a ramping up of natural phenomena and extreme weather events and things of that nature too. So there's just a lot going on. And if we can just anchor into the one thing that we can do today, or in the next day, what's the one thing you can anchor into that day? If we can just anchor into one thing a day that will help us align with what it is that we want to attract into our life. And even if you're in a place where the clarity on what that is just isn't there yet, you probably know the essence. It's probably has something to do with more ease, more grace, more love, more peace, more joy, something of that nature. If you can anchor into just one thing that will allow you to align with one of those kind of characteristics every day and draw that into your life, you're going to be better off personally, and you're going to be doing your part to help neutralize the chaos of the collective so that we don't pressurize this already rather volatile energy that we are seeing ourselves in globally right now. So there's also Uranus has a quincunx with the sun too. So Uranus, like I said, I mentioned that just a little bit ago. It's the planet that's associated with Aquarius. It's about change, dramatic change, and the sun is also already a part of that Grand Cross. So it is not only in the Grand Cross, and it's also playing with the trine with Jupiter, but it's also in this very beneficial alignment with Uranus, where there is a priority for freedom around this quincunx. And I think that that is also going to play a part with this election too, where people are going to respond to the election itself as well as whatever the results are going to be, almost like through this lens of freedom. I think that this election is going to change our system in some way, which is a good thing. We need it. We're overdue for an update, folks. It's like when you update your software. If you don't update your software regularly, and then the app just completely stops working. I kind of feel like that's where we're at with our electoral process and the system in general. It needs a little bit of an overhaul. And so all of this that has been happening over the last year, and especially around this moon here, is very much aligned with getting our priorities straight and getting really clear on what our values are, so that we can hold those who are in positions of authority, not just presidents, but I'm talking about all the people of power, so that we can really decide how we want to hold them accountable. And we can also decide how we want to hold ourselves accountable in order to be able to align with those values. And that's really what freedom is really all about, right? Is being able to have enough space in your life to be able to live a life that reflects those values, whatever they might be. So all of this energy can make us feel very impulsive and restless and almost itchy. So it's really important that we pause before we speak. Think before we speak. In the last video around the new moon, I talked about let's keep our heads on, heads up and heads on. Don't bury your head in the sand. That's another way that we could go into fight and flight, right? That's just fleeing from whatever the challenges are. It's heads up and heads on. And it's heads up, heads on, and then with this full moon, wear a helmet. That's pretty much what it is. Wear a helmet, and your helmet is your emotional regulation. Your helmet is, being able to focus on what it is that you want in life, not focus on the things that are not going so great in the collective, and doing what you can do and then letting go of the rest. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to be able to help in a very tangible way to the collective. And when we're part of the solution, then we're less likely to allow our spirits to get bogged down in the problem. Doesn't mean we're going to be not affected at all, but it's almost like we're aligning ourselves with the hope versus allowing ourselves to be aligned with the despair and disempowerment that despair can make us feel like. The intensity of this will very likely activate our nervous system. We could be very easily triggered over the next 3 weeks. So big breath in, allow the exhale to be longer than the inhale. When we allow our exhale to be longer than the inhale, it allows the pent-up energy to be released. It also slows down the nervous system. If it's in a place of agitated or flight and flight or anxiety or worry, slow it down. Big inhale and exhale. Inhale, see if you can breathe into the belly, allowing the belly to expand. And then exhale. Breathing like this helps us get out of our head and sink into our heart. That's where we need to be. Like the head is already going to be so chatty with all of this fiery element stuff going on. So slow down the breath, slow down the nervous system, get out of the head, get into the heart, but keep your heads up and keep your helmet on. And I almost forgot the tarot. Like I just was like going into it. Let's just pull a few cards and just see. Okay. Yeah, I was breathing all slow and I was like, all right, I guess we're done. Okay. How guide to be of goodwill and our divine highest self. I invite all of those who are watching to set the intention that whatever part of this reading that is pertinent to your situation and your life will be highlighted to you. How might we leverage this super full moon in Aries on October 17th, 2024 to serve our best and our highest good? Tell us what to do with all of this, because it's a lot, y'all. It's a lot. All right. Okay. All right, so this is giving us like a heads up on some of the energies that we might be meshing around with internally, and then what stance we can take in order to not allow those things to kind of take us into the undertow. So the Queen of Swords reverse comes up, and when she's reversed, this is really like giving us the heads up of like, be very cautious of your words. Your word is your wand. And which is very interesting because the next card that comes up is we have the King of Wands, and this is the card that is associated with what stance we need to take. So be very conscientious about your words. The impulsivity can make us like have a very quick tongue, and if you tend to have a very sharp tongue as well, be very careful of that. And you know, like there's a difference. Just because we're speaking truth does not necessarily mean that it's helpful. Truth with plus respect equals something helpful. And also being conscientious about your audience. Like, who are you speaking to? And in what way can you communicate that will actually make a difference and create influence versus us just kind of like spitting out opinions. And then the other thing is that the Knight of Cups, when there can be like this kind of feeling of like, just like kind of depressed, where it's like just a lack of creativity, a lack of inspiration. And the King of Wands is talking about, it's almost like anchoring into something that's helpful from our past, or a person that, or even like kind of partnering up, like locking arms with somebody who is also helpful in your life that has been with you for a long period of time. I'm gonna, and this energy of the King of Wands doing so is going to give us the courage to let go of past hurts. That's the Ten of Swords, past hurts and past betrayals, and any kind of worry or belief that we doubt ourselves and the ability to manifest wealth. Like the Queen of Pentacles is all about the law of attraction. So like we're being asked to dig deep here and to find our fire and to find people or to anchor into things that have been helpful from our past, whether or not it's a creative thing that we used to do that maybe we just kind of let go of. Perhaps we haven't seen our therapist in a while. Maybe it's time to give them a call. Perhaps we haven't got any body work. Perhaps, you know, there's something that we've either been thinking about doing for a while that we need to take action on, or something that we used to do, you know, back in the day, that if we were to return to that could really help give us support to kind of combat this like malaise that the Knight of Cups is referring to, and you know, the ability to keep our heads on about ourselves so that we don't start cutting other people's heads off with the Queen of Swords. So yeah, I think that's really good advice. Thank you. Okay, so that's all. Thank you all so much for joining me here. I will see you back here in a couple of weeks where we're going to take a look at the next new moon. Take care of you all. Bye-bye.